Good morning, Year 11. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the development of early Christian communities, which is the third dot point of the syllabus. So the way it's going to work is that today and tomorrow you're going to be spending both those lessons on this dot point. So today you'll first listen to me talk about it, and then you'll access the PowerPoint on Google Classroom in the About section. And then you're going to take the notes down into your workbooks. But then also, as you can see here, which I'll go over later, there are activities after the PowerPoint that I would like you to do. Okay? But I'll explain them later. So let's just go through the PowerPoint first though. So from approximately 30 to 60 CE, following the death of Jesus, the infant Christian community, or the early Christian community, saw itself as a sect, so just a group which existed within the Jewish tradition. And as a result of this view, no great infrastructure of the movement was established because the followers believed they were living in the last days before the second coming of Christ. So during that similar time, in this infancy of Christianity, there were small groups of Palestinian Jews who followed Jesus through the preaching of disciples such as Peter in and around Palestine. But because of what happened to Jesus, they were still kind of doing it in hiding and in a very kind of a small scale. But once Paul of Tarsus became established, which is later, larger groups of diasporic Jews and Gentiles, so diasporic just means Jews and Gentiles who are removed from their communities, responded to the preaching of Paul. Now, Paul of Tarsus, he can be considered the second founder of Christianity and is extremely significant in the development of the faith. Now, Paul himself helped to set up the structure of this new religion and hence confirm the status of Christianity vis-a-vis Judaism. So he still didn't separate Christianity from Judaism, he still saw it as a part of Judaism, but he definitely helped to create Christianity in its own right. In addition to this, Paul also contributed significantly to the Bible, the New Testament, especially in the New Testament, through his letters. And so you can watch this little video here. I'm not going to play, but you can watch that in your own time. Now, also, another big thing was the Council of Jerusalem in 49 CE. And this council was an attempt to overcome differences within the infant church or the early church. And what really happened was the council formally resolved the debate which divided the Pauline and the Palestinian groups. So what we're talking about there is the differences between Paul of Tarsus and what he thought about Christianity, and Peter and what he thought about Christianity. Now, the council accepted Paul's argument that Gentiles need not undergo circumcision in order to become Christian. That was one big thing that came out of the Council of Jerusalem, which is one big thing that you had to do if you were Jewish. And so by doing this, they were making a very clear distinction between being part of the Jewish faith. And despite the formal resolution of the problem, the tensions between the two early communities continued for some time. Now, the New Testament period, which lasted from approximately 45 to 100 CE, saw the gradual formalization and the centralization of the Christian churches. And the big reason for this was because it was being put on paper. When everything's put on paper, it becomes a bit more, systematic. And this formalization meant that this new religion was increasingly seen as distinct and separate from Judaism. And the need to institutionalize the charism of the movement came about as a result of the delay of the second coming of Christ and the death of the apostles. So the people who were sort of running the show then, once they started to see the apostles start to pass away, the second coming of Christ did not come along, they started to see that Christianity may need to be more of a sustainable thing for the future. And therefore, the writing of the Bible and the institutionalization of the faith became a more serious thing. One other big thing that you want to sort of acknowledge during this time of early Christianity was that despite the establishment of the religion in the communities in the first century, Christianity was still a minority group. And in the 2nd and 3rd century, Christians were persecuted by Jews and Romans alike. And there's quite a few things in films and a lot of writings about Christians who were taken to the Colosseum and also other arenas in the Roman Empire and pretty much put to slaughter, ridiculing their faith. So once you've taken your notes from all those PowerPoints, there's just some simple comprehension questions that I want you to go through, just to make sure you really understand what is going on in regards to the development of early Christian communities. And from that, I would like you then to go on to answering this question. Describe the early development of Christian communities after the death of Jesus. And so you're writing this in your workbooks, but you are to write a 5-mark response to this question. So therefore your response should be an extended paragraph. And in your response, I want you to integrate as much relevant information into your response as possible. Because it's a described question, you need to use additive language, such as in addition to, furthermore, moreover, as well as, and so forth. Okay? By using that language, you are creating flow in your writing. And also, it's so important, you need to use the language of the question. The language of the question is early development of Christian communities after the death of Jesus. Once you have written your response, you are then, to analyze your response. So reading over your response, I want you to highlight in one color where you have actually used the language of the question. In another color, I would like you to highlight where you have used additive language or other language features. And lastly, I would like you to read over your response critically and underline any content that does not specifically relate to the question. Once you have done both those things, you are then to add your note. You add to your syllabus notes, and then also add your edited response to your syllabus notes. So you're fulfilling that part as you go. And then lastly, if you finish all of that within the 2 lessons, I would like you to watch this documentary, covering the early Christianity. It goes about 43 minutes. If you do not have time, if you have to finish this, you get up to this by the end of the 2 lessons, I want you to watch this for homework and have that done by week 2. Hope that's all clear for you guys and pretty straightforward. All the best, and stay posted for next week. Cheers.